to be a fireside chat with actor and producer and founder of Panthertainment, Tyron Ricketts, moderated again by the lovely Carmen Thompson. Welcome to the stage.
Hello. Is it working? Can you hear me?
1, 2,
Great.
1, 2.
I promise this is the last one I'm doing. You're going to be sick of me by the end of this. Thanks so much again for being here. I feel like every session we get more people in the room. It's really exciting. And thank you, Tyron, for being here. Really great to have you.
Thank you for the invitation.
Clapping.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, that deserves a clap. In the middle?
Shall we move?
Okay, sure.
Can you hear us fine? It sounds very...
It's weird, these mics, you can't really hear your own voice, but I'm assured that they can hear us. So.
Perfect.
Tyron, so yeah, this is an in conversation focusing on you. I think what's amazing, what I found so fascinating looking into your kind of career, you've had a really, you've done like a wide range of stuff. You started out musician, rapping, you went into acting, and now you're producing, screenwriting, and we're going to talk a bit about that. But I wonder if you could maybe just, talk us through, is there a connecting thread through all of this, through this journey for you? Like what is the kind of, is there an underlying motivation for the kind of work that you find yourself drawn to?
Definitely, yes. I would say I consider myself a storyteller. And so it was actually through rap music that when that came into my life, I was like 12, 13 years old. And me growing up in Austria and Germany, to see other Black kids and back then mainly men rap and find a voice for their stories. To me, when I saw it first, I was absolutely amazed and electrified by it. And so I, even being like a little brown German boy, I picked it up and used that as a means of getting my story out, and through that, it definitely felt empowering for me to do that because I finally found something that I could identify with, because I couldn't identify with most of the world I was living in Austria and Germany. I didn't have role models. And so even though I'm not American and like a lot of things that were taught through rap music wasn't right, still it gave me a lot of power and strength. And through that, actually, the other things developed. So through me being a rap musician, I got to host a rap TV show. I started producing that TV show myself because I realized I needed to be the person in charge of how that show's supposed to look, And so I think the common thread is storytelling. Then also through rap music, there's a director here in the room, Lars Becker. He heard one of the rap CDs and he called the label asking if I want to take part in like a cinema movie.
Wow.
And so that was my first acting job, like in front of the camera. So thank you again. That's like in 94.
Uh-huh.
So there's the common thread, like finding something to tell your own story, which empowers you and you build on that.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I'm interested in what he heard in that rap that made him think that you belonged in front of a camera. I wonder if you could, talking about, moving into acting, maybe you could speak a bit about, we've already touched on, Wilkett was talking about the types of roles available for people. What was your experience kind of being thrown into that world, the types of roles you were getting, the kind of stories that were out there? What was that like for you?
I think like we've all heard that story so many times before, but usually to sum it up, I would say that 80 to 85% of the roles that I was being offered were roles of the other. So the alien, the refugee, the drug dealer, it would almost every time, be the other. And so even though it gave me an opportunity to like move ahead in that world, it still always frustrated me to personally trying to belong to this society because I am part of this society. I was born in Austria. I went to school in Germany from when I was 6. I am besides the color of my skin, part of the society. But the roles that I had to play in, they would always tell a different story. And we still have that problem today in Germany, that there are two different realities. There's the reality that Germany looks like if you walk on the streets, not just in Berlin, but Germany is a very colorful country. But the way Germany tells itself, it's still mainly white. And if it's not white, it's told mainly from the white perspective, which then again alienizes us. And so that's been so frustrating as an actor. And even though I had like little ups, and then I thought I was like a detective on a TV show, and I thought like, wow, this is a breakthrough. Now it's going to change. Next offer I get refugee. Next offer I get, I don't know, over-sexualized. And it was so frustrating that it actually forced me to become a writer. But then I realized if I just write a story, it's not being made. Then the story is there, but there's still someone needs to make it. And that forced me to become a producer. So I didn't want to become a producer because I like the arts, I like to play, I like to act. But, so yeah, it was mainly frustrating. And I'm realizing now, I realized that yesterday that it's the first time that I walk the Berlinale as a producer, and because we produced a show that's been quite successful, I'm sure we're going to talk about that later. All of a sudden, I'm being recognized differently by these crowds. I walk into mainly white rooms. Not here. It's very nice to be here, this year. But usually it's like all white rooms. Like, for example, I've been to the Producers Allianz. Besides two other people, they were like only like white people, mainly older white men. And I'm realizing now, being a little successful as a producer, how I'm being viewed differently. And people all of a sudden come up to me. But I was still going to bed last night feeling extremely stressed from the day. And I realized it's not, even though I'm being treated more nicely now because I'm successful, my body still stores the stress from like the past 30 years coming in those rooms, feeling inferior, feeling like the room doesn't give me the feeling that I'm supposed to be there. And even though I'm more successful now, I still physically feel that stress. And I was realizing that last night, like, why do I feel stressed? Like everybody comes up to me, praising me for what we did. Why do I still feel stressed? And it's like still from the past experiences. And it's so hard to switch from being a rebel to become a person that's like more powerful. Because we're so used to being rebels. We're so used to fighting against, like an oppressing system. So, yeah.
No, I think you're right. And I think, I want to come back to and really get into that conversation, because I think it's something we don't speak about enough, of how exhausting this work is on a kind of physical level, of constantly fighting, of being in these spaces and trying to break through structures and make people think about things a different way. But I wanted to go back to this transition from acting to producing, because you were saying that even back when in your rap career, you ended up producing the show because you just saw that you need to be in that room as well. I wonder what was that transition like on a kind of practical level, kind of being across more of the way that these stories are told, and what was that kind of change from acting to writing and producing?
It's pretty much the same than it used to be with the rap show. I was out there being pretty much the token for Viva Television because I looked the part. And I knew about rap music, but still I had this producer that told me what I'm supposed to say about the culture that I was much closer to than the producer. And so I was like reading things from the teleprompter, and it just didn't feel right. I was like, no, this is wrong. I know much more about this than that guy. And so I like kind of snuck a couple of friends in, and then I found a sponsor, and I offered Viva, look, I'm gonna give you the money from the sponsor. You keep half, I keep the other half to produce it. But for that, you let me do what I want to do. So that's when I started Panthertainment back then. And that all of a sudden the show got much better, and we got to tell our story. And it's the same with film, you know. I think as long as we are just the actor in front, 95% of the work has been done. The script has been written, decisions have been made, like who's gonna direct it, that has been decided, how it's gonna be marketed. So we just, even if we are strong-minded, if we have the right idea, if you come into the process at the end, there's not much you can do. You know, you can talk to the director and go and tell him this is racist, but then I heard people say, well, if you don't want to do it, someone else is gonna do it. So realizing that, it was clear for me that in order to tell our story properly, you know, 3-dimensional, with an impact, we have to become part of every single step of the process. Meaning we have to be part of writing the script, or part of creating the writer's room. We have to be part of, sit on the table where decisions are being made, where money is being spent and in which direction. We have to be part of who directs it. Also, we have to be part of like creating what the set looks like. Because it's like if you have an opinion as an actor, but you're the only one on set having that opinion, and then 180 people look at you like, what the fuck is your problem? You know, time's running. Then it's too late. So with the last production, we also made sure that behind the camera, there's like a lot of people of color, because it was a story about the first Black police officer in Germany. So it was necessary to have the set look like that as well. But then it doesn't stop there. You know, it also goes into the edit. If you then have people say a film is invented a couple of times. Like first you think about it, and you write it, and you shoot it, and then you edit it, and then you market it. So even in editing, it's so important to have someone that shares the view of what the original story was supposed to be about, because you can still water it down a lot at the end. And realizing all of that, it was clear that I had to, you know, become a producer and, be a part of each of those steps.
Yeah, and I think that it kind of ties into exactly what Daphne was saying. We need people at all levels, in all decision making. I wondered, when you started that transition, what kind of stories did you start writing? Did you start wanting to develop in those moments after, you know, moving into production and starting to create your own content?
The first page on the webpage of Panthertainment, it says, and I stole that quote a little bit, I tweaked it a little bit, but it says, until the panther tells his own stories, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. So I want to tell stories from and with people of color, because that we don't have enough of it. You know, neither in school, nor in politics, nor in media. And the initial goal, or not the initial, like the main goal would be to tell stories in which diversity, as we call it, is normality. So to not make it a problem, but it's just be normal. You know, maybe tell a love story and it's not about the color of your skin. Yeah. But so far, it's easier to tell stories about problems. And even like most of the script that we received and the ideas, I would say also 80%, they deal with trauma. They deal with, the more problematic side of racism, the more problematic side of us not being one world, you know? And film is drama. There might be like a small reason for that, but initially I think we need to create diversity as normality and play the whole tune, you know, play like every note in the tune. So there need to be stories that put the finger in the wound, but there also need to be stories that are just love. There need to be stories that are fun. Yeah,
something that Daphne and Wilke I spoke about before our session, but we didn't get into, is this trope about exceptionalism. So it's either the trauma or it's this, you have to be exceptional. And the thing we're missing is just stories of everyday people, living their lives, like love stories, where, like you say, the color of their skin is not the main thing, and they don't have to be exceptional, and people can just see the way that they live their lives represented on the screen.
That would be nice, and I hope that in the future, there'll be more doors opening up to tell those stories and to really like tell diversity as normality, which it is, in real life.
I want to get onto the show. Maybe you could just tell us, just set the scene a little bit, I guess, in terms of tell us what the show is about, and then we can get stuck into you making it.
So we produced a show called Sam A. Saxon, auf Deutsch Sam ein Sachse. And it's the true story of the first Black police officer in East Germany when the wall was still up. And we tell in a time frame from 89 till 93. It's a true story. And how I found the story was, I think, quite interesting because when I was still a rapper, so there's the common thread again, I used to be part of a very political group called Brothers Keepers. And we put the finger in the wound. We kind of told Germany that Germany has a right-wing problem that wasn't being addressed. And so with this group, we were planning to do a school tour through East Germany. That was in 2001. And before we got to go on that tour, we had received death threats from Nazis. They told us if we show up, they're going to kill us. And so we needed bodyguards. And the real Samuel Mefire, the person that we now made the show about, he used to have a security group, which were all like 190, 195 centimeter, 110 kilo Afro-Germans. And they protected us, And back then, Sam told me his true story, his real story, which was very dramatic because he went from trying to be like the better German, like a police officer, and try to fit in this society. But this, I would say, the resistance from the system that didn't allow him to be a proper part of it really broke him. And so he then became, he kind of radicalized himself, and he started his own like vigilante group to protect his hometown, which then unfortunately led to robberies to finance it. So it's like a real anti-hero, dramatic German, Afro-German, East-West story that really happened. And we luckily got to produce it with Disney Plus, which took 20 years. Because when we tried to tell the story as a feature film in 2005, 2006, the German film world told us, not to my face, but the producer I was working with back then, he told us, yeah, it's a great story, but really, who wants to see a Black lead? So we couldn't make it. And it needed the technology, the technological Neuheit, advancement of like streaming platforms, that the type of stories that are being told were changing. And I guess it needed Black Lives Matter, and it needed Disney Plus to become that. I guess it needed the fact that Disney Plus needed an original, because it was the first Disney Plus original that was supposed to be different than what Disney usually needs to do. And I'm afraid that the window for those kind of stories right now is not open anymore. But back then, which was in 2020, 21, it was open. And so, yeah, we produced it with Disney with like quite some money. And it was luckily aired worldwide. It was aired on Hulu in America, and we got like great reviews. So yeah, it took a long time, but it was possible.
Yeah. And lo and behold, it was hugely successful, and lots of people watched it, as these things always are, despite the arguments that are made when you're trying to get them made.
I don't, to be honest, I don't know how many people watched it, because Disney doesn't give out numbers. Yeah. But they said it was successful.
Yeah. Well, I do think that the way that it's resonating with people at least is to do with how you made it. So I wondered if we could really get stuck into what was that process like of advocating, as you've spoken about representation in all areas of production. I guess also with working with someone like with someone like Disney Plus. What did that actually look like? And I guess again going back to the energy that it takes, you as the kind of the lead of it all kind of have to be across all of this and making sure that there's people in all that rooms. What was that process like for you?
It was very exhausting. It was rewarding too, but it was very exhausting, especially me I used to be an actor. So I used to work for 2 months and then I would like go chill and hang out. And then forget that. If you want to be a producer, that's like 3 years, like every day stress, troubleshooting. And I wasn't used to that. If someone would have told me before, I don't know if I would have. But since I was really burning for that story, and I felt that story needed to be told, because even though it's like historical, it's 30 years ago, it's like super like it's still true today. It's even more true today. If you look at politics, it's like still like so actuel, relevant, current. So I fell off my English a bit. I've been here too long. So I think what it needed was like the nucleus. It needed someone that really like, luckily I haven't made the same experiences than Sam, but I also like suffered a lot growing up here. And I think it needed this nucleus of someone who really wants to tell a story in order to push it through. I think that was the first thing. Then what it needed was like a team of people I still needed white people, allies, to make it happen. Because with my small company, I wouldn't have gotten that amount of money from Disney, to be realistic. So I found a producer, Jörg Winger. He put me on my Soko Leipzig on the detective job. He knew the story. I knew that he wanted to tell the story too, and he was a good ally. Then we had the head writer, Chris Silva. He's like a very accomplished writer. He's a white German man from East Germany, so he had the East perspective, but he has 2 Afro-American / Afro-German kids. So he knew more about the subject. So he was a great ally. And with these 3 people, I think we were able to, like find first UFA, which was the production company, which was not unproblematic. Let's put it that way, because they go back 100 years and there's like old structures in a way, but they know what they're doing in terms of production. So that was the first thing. And then I think the main important part was that I was always in the room when decisions were being made. So we could, as the creators, first form a writer's room that was truly diverse. When I say that, I mean it was like half female, half male. It was that one half was from East Germany, the other half was from West Germany, which is important because it was an East German story. And one half was black, the other half was white, which meant we had so much discussion in the writer's room. But at the end of the day, it was like more dimensional. What came out was more dimensional. It was super important that I was a producer on it, because when we got the green light from Disney, we got like an email from the European president of Disney. He said, Disney is so happy to have this diverse show like on the roster. Whatever we can do to help, let us know. And so I wrote back, like, that's nice that you're writing that, but does whatever you can do, does it mean this is just a nice email, or does it mean you willing to put money where your mouth is? Yeah. And he's like, what do you mean money? And I said, well, we need...
what do you mean money?
I said, we want to have a diverse crew behind the camera too. So Disney actually put out another 90,000, which is is not that much, but it's still a lot of money. So we could have like a mentor program, and we could have a lot of people that hadn't had not the skill set, but hadn't had the credits. We could put them in like a sort of like a mentorship program. We could put them on set. That's what made the set inclusive. But it needed someone that recognizes and to ask the right question at the right moment. then we got to choose the directors. We have 2 female directors. The lead director is Suline Youssef. She's like of Turkish descent, Kurdish. And then we had Zara Blaskowitz. She's like an Afro-East German director. So we could influence that, you know. It helped a lot. Then we had a say in the crew. So we put like, there's one guy here, Daniel Klare. He was like, and a very important actor on the show. I got to pick Malik Bauer, who played the lead role. So we had a say. I had a say in like who's in front of the camera. That helped a lot. And then if you produce such a thing with like a, let's say, old structure like the UFA, how do I say that in a diplomatic way?
It's a closed room. Is it being recorded?
It's a production company that's like very, they focus very much on also the commercial outcome, which is fine. But then you have a bunch of people like the ones that I mentioned, and also Samuel Mefire, like the person whose story we tell. We are so invested in that story emotionally that if you have on one side a structure that does things business as usual, but then you have a bunch of people for whom telling that story is more than just telling a film, but it's about our life. It's about life and death. It's about how we feel in this country. It's about whether we can travel to the east of Germany or not without being scared to like get attacked or killed. So if you have those 2 different energies collide, there's room for a lot of drama. And I was always in the middle of it. If there were complaints from the BPSC sides, they would come to me and complain about it. And I would usually get the blame, which was it's understandable, but it's very exhausting. And if there was complaints from like the UFA side, I was always in the middle. That's why I think it was like so exhausting. But it was important. I couldn't have done it by myself. And it was important to have like a company that was at least willing to try. And I think we all learned a lot. I think that's the most diplomatic way to say it. I think we all learned a lot on the journey. Last but not least, also the edit, I spoke about it before. Once the show was filmed, we had all this amazing footage, but then it needs to be edited. And we had like a very experienced and very good editor, but he was like an older white man. And so he didn't, we had different editors. You know, we also had people, like we had a BPSC editor, but the main editor, he was like an older white guy. And he was very good, but he sees things from his perspective and through his experiences. And so, for example, the first 2 episodes of the show, when we introduce the character, we also show a lot of microaggressions that on first sight might not mean much. But because we had Disney said, well, it needs to be a little faster in the first 2 episodes. So I wasn't in the edit room for a week because I was sick. And when I came back, all the microaggressions were cut out because the guy who edited it couldn't understand. And what was left is you see our protagonist being beat down by 5 skinheads. That is just the tip of the iceberg. But that the bigger problem is that maybe your white girlfriend that you have a baby with, she doesn't understand you and you don't have the language to explain how you feel, or your mother doesn't understand how you feel and you don't know how to talk to her, or the lady at the Amt, was heißt Amt? At the Foreign Office, thank you. The lady at the Foreign Office, like she's like rude to you, and you not being able, whether she's rude to you because she just had a bad day or she's racist, the combination of all of it, that makes the experience of being Black in Germany. And if the editor doesn't understand it, and if he tells me, yeah, but the lady at the Foreign Office is rude to me too sometimes, that's why I cut it out. He doesn't do it because he's a bad person, but he just hasn't made that experience. Hence, it was so important that I was in the room to put it back in, because only through that, you create a 360-degree story from our perspective that then hopefully creates a bridge for other people to understand. So that's why we need to be in power positions at every single step of the fucking process.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And, thank you for that energy, because I think as an audience, as Black audiences, those small things is what really makes watching films by Black creators so magical. It's those small things that only we can understand that other people don't necessarily see, and you have to be in the room advocating for them to be kept in.
And if that's not the case, and we have that in Germany a lot, like everybody talks about diversity, but there's usually 2 or 3 people then on a production that are like the token writer, the token actor. And then what comes out is usually a very like one-dimensional idea what diversity is. It's usually, it's cringe because you feel like it's like so performative, it's so forced. Yeah. And that's not good storytelling.
I'm wondering, looking forward, it sounds to me, maybe if I'm putting words in your mouth, the working that way is not sustainable to be across all of that and to be expelling so much energy. I wonder what you're going to take from that show into your next one. You say you've learned things. Is there things that you would do differently? Like what went well, and how do you want to kind of build your next production if you haven't, or if you've already started? Like, how have you what are you going to try and do differently? Because I feel like you can't be giving so much of yourself like that as a producer.
I would say it's like 2 things. I think the more people that share your vision are part of the team, the easier it gets. So I think we all doing great stuff. We all getting like, even if it's small, but we do get more opportunities, which I think in the future is going to help us to create teams that share a vision. So I would definitely try to like even put more people of color in positions that have more power. That wasn't like 100% satisfying in the last production. And I think since we do live in Germany, and since the goal is, I think that we also tell stories together, even with like the dominant society. But there, I would have to pick my allies more carefully and really find out if they understand what allyship means. Because if they don't, then that's like so much conflict in the process on top of that great amount of work that's already there already. But I do not have the energy to deal with white tears in the production room again because they feel unfairly treated because they haven't done the work, what it means to tell such a story. That's not sustainable at all. No. That like I wasn't gray before 7 session.
Well, and I think just going back to your first one, I think what is so incredible to hear is that what you're doing, what you were able to do with this show is